Welcome to our special Roadman Tour de France live podcast for Stage 15.
Stage 15 of the Tour de France, Pogacar, Vingegaard, head-to-head. It's going to be one of the key stages in this year's Tour de France, and there's some huge takeaways from it. So we wanted to jump on and do a really special reaction show. Not our normal stuff, but we're going to give it a go. Sarah, a lot to unpack from today's stage.
So much to unpack, but first I want to talk about a few things that happened last night, or kind of over what happened on yesterday's stage and things that have unfolded because of that. So today we heard that the Tour de France, the organisers, are reintroducing much stricter COVID-19 regulations. So new measures basically because there's been a spate of COVID-19. Spate.
Okay, a lot of them. How many has to happen for there to be a spate?
A spate.
That's 6.
There's another, it's an epidemic in the peloton at the moment.
Grant Thomas has it. Pitcock's out with it. We already lost Ayuso with it. It's probably some lesser known riders that are suffering with it as well. Yeah,
it's certainly there. I know we were chatting about it yesterday, and there has been some rumblings, a lot of riders giving out that if other riders, I know Geraint Thomas is actively riding in the peloton, he has tested positive for COVID, and I think there's some rumblings amongst other riders and other teams to say, look, if you do test positive, you shouldn't be riding. I don't know, so it's a little bit of a grey area, but they are getting a little bit stricter on masks and a little bit of distancing in the paddock and when they're all meeting going up for sign-on, so that's interesting. The other thing that happened yesterday that had the internet alight was Crisp Man.
It was a packet of Doritos.
Was it Doritos?
It was the blue package, that I think they're the chili heat wave.
Jeez, you wouldn't want to get a chili heat wave in your eye. That would really, really hurt. But apparently he spent the night in jail last night.
Gendarmerie don't mess about.
They don't. Apparently so I don't know how he threw these crisps or chips at Poggy first, and then a couple of seconds later he was able to throw more crisps at Jonas Vingegaard.
He tried to take a slap at him.
Are you sure? I think, I don't know. I thought people were saying that it was
still on it.
And it was kind of like a slap. Okay.
And Jonas kind of swerved, so I'm not sure if he made contact with him.
But apparently directly after that moment, the police were on him like a rash, and they tackled him.
People have phones now. You can't get away with it.
You can't get away with it.
The girl that threw the cap into Van der Poel's wheel as well got identified. I think she got charged as well.
Did she? I didn't know that. I know that her lawyers had to release a statement, but I was really surprised that it took the police to tackle this guy, because there was a good few seconds that had, elapsed between the two riders getting attacked, I think is like a fair enough word for it. Apparently, eyewitnesses and people who were on the climb with this guy said that he was really nice, and he's a cycling fan, not his first time following the Tour de France and supporting cycling. But somebody basically said that he had a very drunken afternoon. So he just got absolutely...
Not that excuses it, he's hammered.
No, it doesn't excuse it, but he was absolutely wasted. I mean, in the photos, the zoom ups of his face, I was thinking yesterday he's either a psychopath or he's deranged mentally, but I think he was just absolutely locked off his face. So a nearby police officer pushed him off the road quite abruptly, they said. So I'd say that was I'd say they took him down, and then he was taken away in a police car afterwards. And Adam Hansen, who we always talk about on the podcast, he's the president of CPA, said that they are definitely pushing for some action to be taken against this guy.
Okay, let's jump into stage 15. So it was one of the pivotal, if not the Queen stage in this year's Tour de France. It's 197.7 kilometres. We started out in Ludenville and we finished on the iconic Plateau de Bié. It was actually littered all day with these iconic climbs. We had the Col de Peyresourde. That's like 7 kilometres at 7.8%. Then we had the Col de Mente. That's 9.3 kilometres at 9.1%. That's brutal. Yeah. And then the Col de Porte d'Aspet. Now, that's a famous climb because in 1995, I think it was, we had Fabio Casartelli. Yeah, it was 1995, the Olympic champion from 1992, Fabio Casartelli, who was teammates with Lance Armstrong, tragically passed away on the Col de Porte d'Aspet descent. And
he was 25 and Olympic champ that year as well. It's
Olympic champ in 92.
In 92. So, wow, so
shocking.
sad.
And that's a descent that is, it's notoriously dangerous as well. And it was interesting actually to watch Pogacar, not only on that descent, but on all the descents. He gave kind of 2 bike lengths. Everyone else is flush, but he gave 2 bike lengths to the bike in front of him. Now, if that's anyone else in the peloton, maybe Jonas gets away with it as well. What happens is the rider from behind comes and he fills in the gap. So Geraint talked about this in the Giro, where he tried to give space on descents to allow himself to see a pothole, and he said he'd just get dive bombed and someone would come in. So it shows you the acclaim that Pogacar has held in the peloton, that he can leave that gap and no one comes and fills it in.
He was actually doing that yesterday as well, I noticed, just giving himself that extra millisecond to react if anything happened in front of him.
Thankfully nothing did. Then the riders went over, it seems like it was just up and down all day, the Col d'Agnès, that's a 10 kilometre climb at 8.2% before the iconic Plateau de Boyer, 15.8 kilometres long with an average gradient of 7.9%, but many like slopes on that up over double digits. So really, really tough. And we've seen huge battles there in the past. Pantani won up there in 1998, and I could get the years wrong, but Armstrong won twice up there. I think it was 2002 and 2004 on the way to another 2 of his Tour de France victories. So we've seen battles. We've seen blood spilled up there through the years.
It looked like hell. I don't know how long it would take me to get up these climbs. I mean, it was just insanity. You're going from 8%, 9% into 13%. And then they were kind of saying, oh, the gradient's going to kind of come down a little bit here into a 9%. So it's really, really tough.
It really kicked off on the parachute straight away. We've seen riders going out the back. I think Arnaud Demar was one of the first people I've seen getting dropped. Cavendish didn't hold on too long. Really difficult day for the bigger guys.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. Turned on the footage, and with 196 kilometres to go, there's people getting dropped. So there was all day we were kind of looking at Mark Cavendish's group and where he was, how far back he was from Poggy, or the leaders basically, and we're kind of thinking, is he going to get a time cut? Now, can you explain the time cut to us, because it can be a little bit confusing.
The time cut is a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
So the race, each stage is classified into one of 6 buckets. So it's assigned a coefficient in advance of the stage on a difficulty of 1 to 6. So a totally flat stage, like we're going to see for stage 15, is probably given a coefficient of 1. This was given a coefficient of 6, which is a very mountainous stage. Then you take the winner's average speed, and based off the coefficient and the winner's average speed, you calculate a percentage. So it's a percentage of the winner's time. So for example, if it's a coefficient 1, which is the easiest stage, and the average speed ends up being 44k an hour, they've 9% of the winner's time to get in. But obviously this was a very difficult mountainous stage. And I think, I'm not sure if it was a coefficient 5 or 6. It might have been a coefficient 5. I can't quite remember.
What would it take for it to be a 6? Today was brutal.
I'm not sure. I didn't check what coefficient it was. But they'll calculate then the winner's speed and then, figure it out based off that. So if you have... you might have 14-15% of the winner's time on a day like this. And I think a few of them actually, one rider missed a time cut today. Don't know who that was. But the big group containing Cavendish that everyone was worried about, I think they were very, very close to it. But the judge and the jury have this discretion to extend the time cut. And they applied a rule which, because the race started going uphill, they actually gave a little bit extra
leeway. Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
So, it was an interesting one. Look, no one wants to see. The time cut's not there to get rid of riders who are healthy, who are getting through. The time cut's really to discourage people who are injured or sick for continuing the Tour de France. No one has an incentive to get rid of the biggest stars in the race. Like, no one wants to see Cavendish, Jasper Phillips, and these guys kicked out of the race.
Yeah, we want to see them. Yeah, we want to see them finish it. 13%. It just doesn't seem like a lot to me. And
pull that figure out in a year. It might have been more than that today.
Okay.
It worked out around 50 odd minutes today.
Okay.
So there's a bit there. We've seen a little bit of drama in the Skoda. I know we want to get into talking about Jonas, Pogacar and that battle, but we did see a little bit of drama in the Skoda sprint after 160k to go.
Yeah, so I was watching this with interest because I absolutely love watching this points classification. I think those guys are cool, but I'm really interested watching this. And we had Gourmet, he's in the green jersey already. He's leading points classification. Coming up to the banner, basically the line for where they get the sprint points, takes kind of a flyer, starts his sprint, and I think it was Bling Matthews that was kind of started off sprinting at the same time. Looked to me that Gourmet completely chopped Bling at this stage, and you could kind of see that Bling was putting his hands up and protesting and looking for. He looked really, really annoyed. What is the story with this chopping? I don't understand. Like, why is some of it allowed and then some of it's absolutely not allowed?
Chopping, you mean deviation?
Deviation off his line, yeah.
Yeah, the sprint deviation, it's been more strictly enforced this year than it has previously in other years. It's meant to be once you launch your sprint, once you get to sprint velocity. So if you're in the saddle, you're not in sprint velocity. If you're navigating around, you're not sprint velocity. But the moment you start your sprint, you're meant to stay in a straight line. Now, where this gets a little bit confusing is if the road doesn't go straight, you can follow the line of the road. So for me, Biniam, that was a clear violation, and I think he should have been disqualified for that. And someone might let us know in the comments, because we've gone on air just after the stage finish, so maybe he has been disqualified, because I haven't seen the UCI communique after the stage.
That would be disqualified from the race,
no,
or disqualified from that winning that point.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so
okay, interesting.
And get no points from her.
And we did see Gourmet sprinting on the drops today. You were giving it yesterday. We were watching some.
No, he didn't sprint the drops today, did he?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, he was on the drops as far as I know. Yesterday.
On the drops, yeah. Sorry, yesterday he sprinted on the
yesterday
hoods.
You were giving out about all the sprinters sprinting on the hoods, and you're like, what is going on? I get if me and Anthony are ever sprinting for a town sign, I think you go pretty easy on me in those days. But if I ever sprint and I'm on the hoods, you're like, oh, that's embarrassing. Sprint on the drops.
So yeah, today the break again had no real chance. Like, we had 2:30 minutes at the bottom of the final climb, and like we had Carapaz in there. He was kind of last man standing in the break. Healy was in there for a while. Who else did we have in there? We had Lawrence de Plus was in there, good climber. We had Heinrich Mas was in there. Johansson from Uno X. Uno X have had a great Tour de France.
They have. They've been amazing. I don't know if they've been really spurred on by the loss of, I think it's one of the guys from the development team. He was Norwegian, who passed away just, I think, Tour of Austria, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. And I don't know, I think, not that they wouldn't have done as well, but it's really given them impetus. And yeah, they're definitely front and centre. I mean, Johannes Abramson he really wore that polka dot jersey for so many days at the beginning with pride. So that's always cool to see one of the kind of smaller teams performing. Yeah,
there wasn't a whole pile to be said about the break today. It was a big group at one point. They didn't cooperate well. They could have had a lot more advantage into the bottom of the climb. I think they only had 2 minutes 30 into the bottom of the final climb, which just wasn't enough. The way it transpired and the speed Pogacar rode it at, and I have some comparisons to historic speeds people rode it at, which I'll give you in a minute, because he was a lot faster than Marco Pantani when he won in 1998, which I don't know. I'm sure online alarm bells are going to be going off at that, but we won't get into that.
We won't speculate.
So yeah, the break today was, they were masters of their own downfall, but just not cooperating. But I think they would have needed 5 minutes or so into the base of that climb. They only had 2.5. Carapaz went for broke at a certain point, but really all the action came from the GC group today. I'm
not a huge fan of Carapaz, but he has been pretty impressive, and today he was like the honey badger. He was really cool today. Anytime, okay, so he got past by riders, then he'd really work hard to get back onto a wheel, then he'd just dig in, stay on, like, geez,
a lot of it's TV attacks though. Like, you got to separate, like at the bottom of the climb, like, you got to ride bottom to top as fast as you can. And when Carapaz launches like 1100 watt sprints for 10 seconds and then he settles back into a rhythm, no one's going to ride with him then. Like, he needs to be a little bit smarter. And Jonathan Vaughters is in commentary as well, echoing that, saying the exact same thing. The only chance they have as a group is to get Heinrich Mas going through, to get Lawrence de Plus going through, to just get them rolling, one after the other, and to get that little bit of aero, the insistence that you get by sitting in someone's wheel. It's not that much, but it is still significant.
Jonathan Vaughters has been really good because even though he's the owner of EF Education, he's still quite vocal and honest about the tactics that his riders are employing, whether he agrees with them or not. I mean, yesterday, the Italian, the national champ Bettiol, he basically pulled out. I thought it was from COVID, but Jonathan Vaughters basically came on and said, you know what, he kind of just gives up. If he doesn't have, he just pulled an Italian. If he doesn't feel he has a goal, or he's going to place in the top 10, or he's got a chance at winning a stage, he just drops the head. So it is quite interesting to hear it from that perspective as well.
What was much more interesting for me was Visma Lisa Bike's tactics. I still haven't got out how to call them Jumbo yet. Visma Lisa Bike's tactics today. Jorgensen was the only rider left with Jonas on the final climb. Now, he did set an animal pace. Like, he rode the first, so what was it, it was a 14.8 or a 15.8 kilometre climb, bottom to top. So he rode until 10k to go on the climb. And
you know what really impressed me about him? So he is, look, I love these roles of the domestique and super domestique, and he's a standalone rider. If he wasn't on a team with Jonas, he would exactly. He's absolutely insane. What really stood out for me in those last, I was saying to you as we were watching it, just as he was about to peel off, for those 10 last meters, he got out of the saddle and sprinted and emptied himself completely. You know what I mean? Just that eking out that extra bit.
He was 10th on GC going into the race, and he still rode himself to a standstill. So that's, chapeau to him for that. I don't agree with how they executed their tactics on the day. I thought it was a disaster, but you can't fault them for effort.
Yeah, totally. And so do you think that Visma Lisa Bike kind of hurt themselves more today using those tactics than they actually hurt Pogacar?
Well, so Jorgensen rode a super tempo. So those first 5 odd kilometres that he rode on the front, like, he dropped Almeida, he dropped Chicone, he dropped Derek G, he dropped Rodriguez, which has been a nightmare Tour de France for Ineos, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So the tempo he set was really hurting.
Infernal, as Sean Kelly said about 20 million times. Infernal pace.
Okay, so the question is, you ride all day and you commit for, as they did, to commit it to the stage. You don't need to catch that break. So why they start riding so early to control the break, I don't understand. The argument for it is you want to make the day as hard as possible, so you want to start as early as possible to make the day as hard as possible. Grand. But I actually think that when you leave only Jorgensen on the final climb and then Jonas goes from 10 kilometres, you have, the way it transpired, right? So Jonas goes from 10k out. He rides until 5k to go with Pogacar, and Pogacar launches a 5k to go. So the 5k that Pogacar is in Jonas's wheel. So I was trying to do some quick maths before this. So based off the times yesterday's climb, we can assume both these riders are doing just under 7 watts per kilogram on it. It's an 8% grade. So Pogacar being in Jonas's slipstream, it's worth around 25 watts to him. Wow. It's not a negligent amount. Mm-hmm. Everyone thinks there's no draft benefit in the hill, but the speed these guys are going, there is a draft benefit. So he's essentially handicapping himself by 25 watts for the first 5 kilometres of the climb. And I think that's a huge reason why Pogacar is able to ride away from him. If you take the idea of, instead of riding to control the break all day and make it hard as possible all day, if they leave the break go out to 8-9 minutes and they start riding later into the stage, they pick up riding at 100k, they still have Jan Trapnik, they still have the other guys to ride later into the stage. Wilco Kelderman ride later into the stage. Maybe you can use then Jorgensen from 10k to 5k, and it's a much more effective springboard for Jonas. The counterpoint is that you want to try and make it hard all day, but the counterpoint doesn't play out, because we can see how this played out, and it was a bad tactic. It didn't work at all.
But yeah, that's it. The Lisa Bike guys, domestiques or helpers, I agree with you. We're dropping off very easily, which I kind of thought was
dropping off easy.
Not easy. Sorry, early. Early.
Yeah.
So they were left basically with, as you said, just Jorgensen at the end. But why would that be the tactic if UAE aren't really going to ride at that stage? You know what I mean? They're controlling it. So why, I totally agree with you. It baffled me as to why they didn't take the pace back a little bit and have more bodies.
Well, they should have just started later.
Yeah.
Like, they should let the break go out to 8 minutes or 9 minutes. They don't care about the stage. Whatever about the bonus seconds, it doesn't matter. It's 10-6. Like, it's a negligible difference. But let the break go out. Don't worry about controlling that. Start riding from 100k. And then you have more men to spare, so you can use people and preserve Jorgensen, who's going to be the last man, for that 10k to 5k to go, and Jonas only has to go from 5k instead of going from 10k. That's what should have been done. Why they wanted to do it is they wanted to make the whole day as hard as possible, so they took up riding a really hard tempo as early as possible to put Tajay under as much pressure, to burn as many kilojoules as possible. Yesterday we were chatting, and the whole thing kind of hinges on a bet that either side is taking. That UAE are betting that Jonas has come into the race so undercooked that he's going to get weaker and weaker, that he hasn't got the preparation done. Visma are taking the counterpoint bet to that. They're saying he's come into the race with so little preparation done that he's fresh and he's going to get stronger and stronger as the race goes on. We've seen UAE's perspective is the correct one and not Jumbo's perspective is the correct one. I thought they had a tactical nightmare today, and Jonas has effectively lost the Tour de France today.
Yeah, I think Podgy has it. He looked comfortable, didn't he? I mean, well, no, I kind of take that back. It's really hard. Podgy, I wouldn't like to play poker with him because he's very hard to read, isn't he? I mean, there are some tells. When him and Jonas went at one stage, Podgy very nonchalantly took both hands off the bars, took something to eat, just looked like he was going to chill him back there. So he is kind of, hard to read, and maybe these are like mind games they're playing along the way. Who knows? But I think Podgy, I personally think he has it sewn up at this stage.
So Pogacar rode 39.44 from bottom to top of Plateau de Boyer.
Whoa.
That's 3 minutes and 44 seconds faster than the fastest ever time set by Marco Pantani up the climb.
Whoa.
So to put that into perspective, Jonas rode 40 minutes and 52. Evenepoel rode 40.35. Pantani rode 43.28. So Vingegaard has gone up faster than Evenepoel's gone up. Armstrong, for his 2004 win, rode 45.31. So that shows you how far it's gone. Technology has moved on an awful lot. Tyres, rolling resistance, aero helmets, aero socks, drivetrain efficiency. A lot of that has moved on very, very far, but it's still a beastly performance. The data yesterday from Pogacar for the final climb for 27 minutes. Now, it was an altitude effort, so it worked out as 6.83 watts per kilogram for 27 minutes. But if you normalise that for sea level values, that's 7.14 watts per kilogram for 27 minutes. Take your weight, put that into a calculator now, multiply it by 7.14 and see. Like, for me, I'd have to drive 560 watts or something for 27 minutes to hold Pogacar yesterday. It's insane.
Oh, what a beast. Absolute beast mode.
Post-stage, it was... relaxed Pogacar. He, as usual, he's kind of he's very good on camera. He's not that he holds his cards close to his chest, but he's always very thankful of his teammates. And I have a little short quote from him there. I'd never imagined this outcome after the second week. I'm so super happy with my shape, but it was also super hot and really hard day today. Usually I always struggle with the heat, and today the team did a super good job of cooling me down. It was an incredible day. So when I came to the bottom of the last climb, I was on the limit when Jonas tried to drop me, but I could see he was suffering too. When he tried to drop me the last time, I saw that he didn't have the legs to go to the top, so I tried on my own, but it was super tough in the final. The cooling has become such a huge part.
Yeah, it was 30 degrees in the valley today. And if I'm anywhere that's 30 degrees, I need to be beside a pool. I'm just not, just the efforts that these guys are putting into to stay cool, all these new cooling protocols that they have. But yeah, that's a very warm day.
Yeah, we had Ross McGraw on the podcast, who is the president or vice president of CORE. So if you see any of the athletes now, they're wearing a little CORE strap on the side of their heart rate, and that's because you can flick up a data screen on your Garmin to show you your core body temperature, and a small increase in your core body temperature results in a massive drop off in your power. And you see me, I was on the Wattbike in here last week, and I got my core body temperature up to 38.5, and it's insane hard. Like, my power went from, so I started off at 37 degrees, so I was 200 watts at 100 heart rate, and staying at 200 watts and going to 38.5 degrees, my heart rate went to 160. So a 60 beat difference in my heart rate for the same power. So it shows you how important cooling is, and it's been massively prioritized now.
Yeah, I think it has. You can tell me, but if 5 years ago, I know maybe longer, did you see those big blocks of ice in tights being passed out to riders?
That has been going a while, but I don't think there was an awareness as to how important it was. A big change that you're not seeing is coming over the top of the descents now. You used to see newspapers getting handed out and riders putting back on gilets. They're doing the opposite now. So at the top of these descents, riders are taking on ice cold bottles, and they're pouring them over themselves, and they're shivering down.
I have seen that. Yeah, I've seen that.
So they're absolutely shivering down the descents in a frantic attempt to just drop the core temperature. So when they hit the bottom of the next climb, especially a day like today where it's up and down and up and down, it's really, really important.
They've got that big bit of kind of core temperature wiggle room when they start the next climb.
100%.
Okay, fascinating.
So you want to go into look at the classifications?
Yeah, let's have a little look.
So Wes, will you stick up the GC and we'll have a look at it? So I have GC here somewhere. So GC, do you want to run through it, sir, or like?
Yeah, so GC, we have Pogacar, and then behind Pogacar, we have Jonas Vingegaard. He is 3 minutes and 9 seconds down. Then in third, we have Remco, who is 5 minutes and 19 seconds down.
Podium's sewn up in it.
Yeah, it is. It really is, because next is João Almeida. UAE.
You actually done a great ride today, because you got dropped when
did.
Jorgensen was riding at the base of the climb inside the first 5k.
I managed to like claw his way back
Like, he
and keep
finished,
some
let me see,
time.
we have stage results. He finished like, I'm going to say he finished like 4th or 5th on today's stage. It was an incredible ride from him.
So he's 10 minutes and 54 off Tadej Pogacar on the GC. And then as we go down, we've got Landa, Rodriguez, Yates is somebody of note, 13 minutes, 38 down. Derek G, we always like to see him doing well. He's Canadian, 16 minutes down. And Ben Healy, obviously I'm roaring Ben on every time I see him make those crazy attacks. He's 29 minutes down now. He's 13th on GC. Anyone there that you want to talk about?
Sorry, just cross. Yeah. I know people with Ben Healy, I've seen commentators, or not commentators, but people on Twitter talking about, if Ben hadn't set up on the Galibier stage, that he'd be much higher on GC, because he set up to wait for Carapaz to drop him back up. But if he doesn't sit up on the Galibier stage, like, he's never getting allowed in the break. Yeah. So he's not 13th on GC, because the break has taken days that he's gone to the finish in the break, and it's taken time.
I love Ben's attitude as well. A brilliant article yesterday in Cycling News, and they just got an amazing quote from just saying, like, look, everybody, it's just bike racing. Like, people coming at me and for me online and, dissing me and giving me grief over my tactics and I shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that. He's like, relax, everyone. It's bike racing, which I love that.
So, as we drop the mountains classification, the mountains classification oddly resembles the general classification as it often does. So I'll just run through the top three of that.
Talk about why Jonas was in the Pogacar today, though.
Yeah,
you're in a polka dot jersey yourself today, Anthony.
I'm wearing a polka dot.
Classic climber.
You wouldn't expect it for a man at 85 kilos. Tadej's leading the King of the Mountains competition with 77 points. Jonas 58 points in second place. Pogacar obviously can't wear two jerseys at once. He's leading the GC, so the second place in that competition wears the jersey. So Jonas wore it as a. I have this assumption that they only make it in extra small, but we had Jonas Abrahamsen, who's in it all week, and he's a big dude. So
he's a big dude.
Maybe you have to get that custom made for him.
Yeah, I think the jersey looked a little bit flappy on Vingegaard today. I have to say
every jersey looks flappy on Vingegaard.
He's so skinny. Yeah.
Remco's third in that classification of 42 points. I don't envisage that's going to change too much, but you do get a lot of points for being out in the breakaway. So depending on how the next few stages are played, Jumbo definitely don't have. Can't see them playing that card again. So I don't know, maybe breakaways have more of a chance in the third week.
People we're not seeing in the top of any of these are, again, as we spoke about, Ineos, a lot of the Soudal Remco's there for Soudal. But yeah, it's just like no Ineos at all. It's just blatant that there's nobody there representing them. In fourth, Jonas Abrahamsen, shout out to him. I love him. I love his backstory. He basically had delayed puberty as he was kind of coming up the ranks as a junior, decided this wasn't working for him, put on 20 kilograms, and he spent the first week and a bit in the polka dot jersey in the Tour de France. It's kind of like a Disney kind of story, isn't it?
Your weird Disney story, boy. Yeah. You're watching different Disney.
Someone would watch it. We would.
We'll finish up on this classifications with the sprint classification. We talked about deviation today from Biniam. Maybe someone has let us know in the comments if he actually got relegated in that or not. But Biniam's leading that with a massive gap at the moment of 363 points from Jasper Disaster Philipsen at 277. Brian Concard from Cofidis is 147. Arnold Lee 142. Anthony Turgis 141. And Pogacar is sixth in that competition as well at 136.
Billiam today, I think he went for two of the sprints. The first one we spoke about, where I feel that he deviated and his points should be taken away from him. The second one, he emptied himself, and then I think it went straight into a climb very soon thereafter. They were climbing, and his cadence was going up that climb was probably about 20 rotations. He's done. He's waiting for the bus, but it was just like, he completely emptied himself, so chapeau to him for that. Okay, what about what's happening next tomorrow? What are we going to do all day?
Well, tomorrow's a rest day, so we're going to be recuperating from preparation.
What will the riders do tomorrow? When we think rest day, we think Netflix and chill.
Yeah, they will do a lot of Netflix and chill. They'll spend a lot of time in their rooms. They will chill a lot. They'll probably do a ride, they'll almost certainly do a ride. Depending on the rider, they might do some openers. I'd say they could ride anywhere between an hour and 3 hours. They might do a few openers to keep the body. The body likes consistency, and if you go from doing hard, like people often get sick after racing blocks like this, because as soon as you rest, the body just wants to shut down completely. So even after the Tour de France is over, you'll see a lot of them do a 3-2-1 protocol. So instead of taking the day off after the Tour de France, they'll ride 3 hours. The day after that, they'll ride 2 hours. The day after that, they'll ride 1 hour. And the day after that, they'll take off. So they'll slowly come down through the gears. But on a rest day, yeah, anything from 1 to 3 hours, maybe a few efforts thrown in. Massage, hang out with family, would be allowed to visit a lot of them, and then media obligations.
Yeah, there's very few riders, if any, that would take a complete day off the bike, isn't there? It's kind of unheard of. So massage, a ride, and then Netflix and chill.
Yeah, and then we are into stage 15, which is finishing in Nemes. It's 188.6 kilometers. Not much to report on it. There's one category 4 climb. Wind forecast is looking like it's pretty still. Looks like a day for the sprinters. So let's see, since Cavendish didn't get time cut, maybe it's another one for him, but who knows?
Yeah, maybe Sam Bennett can up the ranks. He's not looking great, is he? Yeah.
Romain, thank you for tuning in to a Tour de France special edition. Before you head off, can I ask you to check out the sponsors in the show notes down below, because without them, this show wouldn't be possible. And if you like this video, you can see more of myself and Sarah up here, where we're talking about what all the pros eat to get so lean. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because we're going to be going live all next week for the Tour de France. From Tuesday to Sunday, we're going to follow the riders all the way to Nice. Thanks for chatting.